Celine.
And welcome to another episode at the
We Are Podcast. This is another news update, your weekly news update for the week. The top headlines, more about Britney.
More about Heidi, more about Democrat reconciliation bills.
And floods and fires and natural disasters.
Yeah,
Right.
so we'll be talking about a lot of that. And let's just dive in.
Without further ado, let's dive into it.
Alright. So the first headline we have for today is that about Britney Spears, and as you all probably know, Britney Spears has been fighting to get rid of conservatorship. And what is conservatorship?
So conservatorship is when someone has control over your finances, your property, basically your life. Like they're your guardian, your legal guardian basically, and they have control over everything. So Britney's father is her part of the conservatorship. Like he's the one who's her technically guardian or whatever, because she has bipolar disorder and some mental issues. But she spoke out about it recently, and now she can actually hire her own lawyer.
Yeah, so that's really good because I think there was a documentary that came out on Netflix that really demonstrated how unfair it was basically.
And the whole situation that we as fans or as just citizens watching her songs or listening to her music, we didn't see the whole story behind her life that we didn't even get to see, the control that she didn't have.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that she's speaking out about it now. I mean, she even went so far as to say that her father abused his role as a conservator.
And I think it is a form of abuse in a way, because he did do a lot of things. We talked about this in past episodes. He would do a lot of things that she didn't consent to, or she didn't necessarily. He made her say things she didn't necessarily want to say in public.
Yeah.
So,
and I think he kind of manipulated her for money.
For money. Because she's very talented. She's a very great singer. She has a lot of talent. She's like a pop star, a public figure.
And one of those parts of that is that she didn't want to do concerts and stuff that he made her do for the purpose of getting money.
So I think it's definitely taking advantage of a situation that he shouldn't have even been a part of. His daughter is a pop star. Let her do her thing. Don't take control completely over her and money.
So, according to BBC.com, Britney Spears has told the U.S. court that she wants to press charges against her father over conservatorship abuse, and she said she was angry and she will go there.
She's really angry, and she's gonna go, she's gonna take the measures she needs to in order to basically have control of her life again. Because she never did. So.
And along with that, the court also ruled that she can hire her own lawyer to challenge the conservatorship,
That's good.
Which is really good. And it kind of shows, I feel like it kind of shows a prediction in a sense that what's going to happen regarding this case.
And we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if she'll win this case, what the outcome will be, but we can hope the best for her in her life. And we can hope that she can be happy. And
All right. So our next headline we have is about Heidi. So if you missed this last week, we talked about the assassination of the president.
The president of Haiti. So he was assassinated. His name was Jovenel Moise, by the way.
Yeah. And so back when we talked last week, we said that we couldn't find any suspects. But this week, actually, the Haitian government found that they have quite a few suspects.
So one of the suspects is actually, his name is Joseph Felix Badio, and he previously worked for Haiti's Ministry of Justice and joined the government's anti-corruption unit in March 2013. There are also two more suspects, the other one is Rodolphe Jarre, and then
another one is John Joel Joseph, who is a well-known Haitian politician and the opponent of the party that Moise belonged to.
So he was a large opponent, a public opponent of the former president. So I think that's a red flag that he could have been the one who was either behind the attack or actually took part in it, or was the one who shot the gun.
Yeah, and also in this case, I actually watched a video of this, but there was a journalist who was live streaming kind of the situation after the assassination, and he came across two mercenaries that were Colombian. So in case you didn't know, mercenaries are basically professional soldiers hired
alright.
to like serve. They're basically like kind of like a assassin. I don't know how to explain it.
Like, so do they work for like the government they're living in, of the like country they're living in?
Yeah, they could. There actually was a news that they could have been like inside people that.
They're like in an organization.
Yeah,
they were hired to do something.
Yeah, they were hired.
Yeah,
to
okay,
do it.
okay. That
Basically, so they were like hired to do this job, and they were.
Oh, that kind of like an assassin, actually.
Yeah, and also there was a news that broke out that some of the suspects were actually people that worked for the president and that were on the inside.
Really?
Yeah, because it was interesting because there was 3 different security checkpoints, and all 3 of them got breached.
Oh,
which means that there has.
So you'd have to have the information of where they are to actually reach them.
And you'd have to have some support from the inside, in my
yeah,
opinion.
which mean you were like in the inner workings of the political system that ran the country. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
And so because of this and all this news and so many things are happening, there was a lot of upset in Haiti, and a lot of people were rioting, and a lot of people were asking questions about what the U.S. would do, and there was questions of whether President Biden would send U.S. troops over there to calm the rioting, but the president actually spoke and said, we're only sending American Marines to our embassy, which is like the United States embassy, and the idea of sending American forces to Haiti is just not on the agenda.
So it's like not a priority right now for the U.S. Okay.
It's not going to happen. We don't think it's going to happen. So
interesting. All right. Yeah. That's interesting.
It is. So our next headline is about some natural disasters.
Yes.
You might have heard this on the news, but in Germany and Belgium and across Europe, there has been insane rainfall.
Yeah, insane rainfall, and with insane rainfall comes flooding.
Yeah, and it's actually some of the worst flooding and rainfall they've seen in a century. It is so bad that in the German states of Palatinate and North Rhine-Westphalia were worst hit, and there were so many deaths. I think this morning I updated a news, but as of Friday the 16th of July, there was over 100 deaths.
Oh my gosh, and dozens missing too.
Yeah. I think that's crazy because flooding is something that you wouldn't expect so many deaths from.
Yeah, I mean, I think along with the heat wave too, I think both of those things are like you know they happen, but it's so like weird to think about people actually like perishing because of them, you know? And these floods are really like severe. Yeah. And there's a lot of rescue and aid happening though, like helicopters and rescue boats are being sent for like rescue efforts, and France sent a helicopter and a rescue team to Belgium, and Italy and Austria have offered their help, so
yeah, and I think that's really good because you know all of Europe, which includes all of those countries, they're kind of like a cult. Not a cult, but they're family
industry of like
and so
countries that work together.
I think it's kind of like a duty for them to help each other.
Yeah, because it's like in the United States, if a state like let's say California was suffering from drought or like fires, I think a lot of other states would swoop in to help, you know, because we're a community, we're all in this together, you know.
Yeah, and so that's kind of what's happening there. Regarding the chancellor who was like the head of government in Germany, her name was Angela Merkel, and she said she was shocked by the severity of the flooding. And during her comment, her reporter said she sounded super emotional, disappointed. Because
definitely.
Another thing, Angela Merkel is actually visiting President Biden in D.C.
Oh, really? At the time of the floods?
Yeah, it was already pre-scheduled.
So she wasn't even there for the.
Yeah, she said she was so emotional that she couldn't be there while her people were struggling.
That would tear you apart to be like across the world from your citizens while these floods are like taking their lives and ruining their lives.
Yeah,
so
it's sad.
We hope the best for them. We hope you know the rescue efforts will help and contribute.
I hope everyone in Germany hopefully finds a way to get out of there and is doing okay.
And it's really scary.
It is definitely scary. My recommendation, if anyone, actually we did have listeners in Germany.
I think we did, because we can tell our analytics on like Anchor.
So in Germany, the rescue teams are saying if you can contact someone. I know it's hard because the telephone isn't really working.
The reception isn't great. But
go on your roofs
going on high places.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there was also a recommendation I heard that people are moving to like the tops of their apartment floors, on their roofs.
Yeah. So as high up as you can get there, because then the flood will be harder to reach you.
Yeah.
And we're really, like, to all the people, like, it's such a tragic event.
And I think in the future, something I want to add is that it's super important, I think, to have, like, sort of, how do you say it? Like, survival equipment, you know?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
have bottled
Preparation.
water.
Yeah.
Have, like, food that doesn't expire, like, that
Because I
stuff.
think in our world now, there's, like, heightened natural disasters. I feel like I hear so much more about them, like fires, like a wide variety of them.
I was actually listening to a podcast yesterday, and it was asking, like, does the flood have anything to do with climate change? And it could.
Yeah, I think any natural disaster at this point could. And so, yeah, we're hoping the best.
Yeah.
Stay safe.
Yeah. Be prepared for anything.
Yeah. So the next topic is another natural disaster.
Yes.
It's actually a fire in Bangladesh. And
So okay. So basically, there was like a juice factory, like a juice.
What is a juice factory?
A factory. It's like. It kind of sounds weird because you kind of expect juice to just come from somewhere, but it's actually where the juice is like bottled and made.
That's
and
interesting. All right,
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, they made a juice making factory, and there was actually a fire that got out, and they think it was arson. They think it was arson.
Oh, so like so arson is like when someone purposefully sets a fire.
Yes, or
so it's not like caused by natural causes. It's like
that's what I heard. They don't know what it is yet, but they want to make sure that whoever's guilty is punished.
Like gets punished
And
with charges.
the government ordered an investigation into it. But basically what happened was that 52 people were killed and at least 20 were injured.
That's terrible.
And it was a massive fire. The saddest part about this was actually one of the main like key exits out of the working area was locked.
Oh my goodness.
They also think that has something like it's so suspicious that it was
did
locked.
the person who like allegedly set the fire could have locked it so people
it all could have been a mistake. We don't. I
mean, it could have been without a
been.
purpose. It could have been like an accident, but you never know. So they're doing investigations, I assume.
That was said by fire official Abdullah Al-Arfin, and 3 people actually died from jumping off the building to escape the fire, and then 49 charred bodies were recovered, said Mustain Billah, the administrator for the Narayanganj district, and he told Reuters that, which is our source.
That's terrible. I really hope they figure out if this was like more of like a hate crime, like a purposefully violent crime, or if it was an accident, because if it was purposeful, then the person definitely needs to be punished. So I mean, it's awful. Again, another awful event that has taken place where people have lost their lives again. Like it's terrible to all the families who have lost people. Like I'm so sorry, but you know, hopefully for the future we can try to prevent these more.
Okay, so our next title or thing is a little bit more lighthearted.
Lighthearted, yeah. So you probably have heard of Olivia Rodrigo.
Yes.
Right? She's a pop star, especially for like what generation are we? Like Gen Z. For Gen Z. Yeah. She has like so many followers. She has like 14.4 million followers on Instagram. She's saying driver's license, good for you, deja vu. Like
she had #1 on the Billboard.
#1 album, Sour. So she has a lot of influence, especially over Gen Z, the Gen Z population.
Yes. And I think that's really important because this headline is that this pop star, actually met up with Biden and Fauci to drive up vaccination rates from ages 18 to 29.
And I think Ahana mentioned this in a previous episode that the ages 18 to 29, the vaccination rates are so like unbelievably low that and I think it's because not just because of hesitancy, but more because of like invincibility and feeling that like, oh, it's not a big deal, it'll be fine. So I think Olivia Rodrigo is doing this to kind of like use her influence to encourage people to get, especially in that age range, to get vaccinated.
Yeah, and they made posts on Instagram. She made a appearance in the White House briefing room, and she spoke on the social media platforms.
Yeah.
And she gave a small little speech. I think it was very well scripted and a good move.
I think it was.
I think the president is smart by doing that, by promoting vaccinations.
I think it's like you run out of options, so you have to get influential people because there are so many kids that look up to her or like love her songs, listen to them on repeat, and when they see that, they're going to be like, oh, I want to get vaccinated too.
Yeah.
And Olivia said, quote, it doesn't matter if you're young and healthy. Getting the vaccine is about protecting yourself, your friends, and your family. Let's get vaccinated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So
I'm
our
glad
next
she's doing that.
headline is related to that. LA County is actually now requiring masks indoors.
Yeah.
So I think 2 episodes we were talking about how California was reopening, right?
Right. So that means no mask mandates. Basically, it's just back to normal or like a sense of normalcy. But just a short month ago, Los Angeles County in the state of California. Wait, we just said that.
Yeah.
So now LA County is requiring masks indoors, even if you're vaccinated.
That is crazy.
Yeah, it is for vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals. So I feel like this is such a big deal because it was such a progress marker when they reopened, and now it's kind of like going back to where they started.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
And actually, go ahead.
And we've talked about this like several times, but we were saying everything's reopening, but it's not over because the Delta variant is so dangerous.
Yeah.
It's making up so many corona cases now. It is insane. So this just shows that it isn't over.
Yeah, and after California reopened, actually, the LA County was seeing nearly 10 times as many coronavirus cases, which is crazy. So they're like, they realize like this isn't working. We need to try something new, and in LA County, actually, 86% of people diagnosed with the Delta variant were not fully vaccinated. So only 52% of all residents in LA County are vaccinated. So that's only over half, a little bit, like slightly over half. So I think LA County is realizing that like they need to come up with a new method, even if it means that like vaccinated individuals still have to follow regulations. That's like they're desperate at this point.
Yeah. I mean, of course you should get vaccinated. And I think a big thing that people don't realize, I think people think vaccines will mess up their DNA, like cause growth spurts. But the thing is, vaccines are made up of mRNA, which is like a messenger RNA. And it's basically like directions sending to your immune system about how you should handle the virus. So it's not altering your DNA in any shape,
and it doesn't cause like infertility or like
because it can't alter your DNA.
Yeah.
If it altered your DNA, then I'd be like, okay.
And there's so many other vaccines that we get, like I can't think of some. Flu, and then there's also like hepatitis C and like tetanus.
Yeah,
and stuff
all
like
sorts
that.
of stuff.
And none of those have any negative impact. And they actually positively impact them because they protect us.
And also, the thing is, you could do some research on mRNA, but mRNA is literally like an instructor. It doesn't alter your DNA. It doesn't do anything of that. So it can't change the way you think. It can't change the way you act. It
I
can't change the way you
suggest
grow.
if you're hesitant, talk to friends and family and do some research online, and talk to your medical professionals too. They'll definitely encourage you and give you reasons to like back up why you should take it, and like why if you're worried about it, they'll reassure you that like nothing you're worried about is actually gonna happen.
Okay. So the next and the final headline we have for this half is that the Olympics, which we also talked about previously, they were allowing spectators, but they officially said that no more spectators are allowed.
Oh my god!
Because the cases in Tokyo are mounting rapidly.
Yeah, that's a big thing because the Olympics are so like monumental. They're so symbolic.
Yeah.
And, like everyone watches them. It's such a fun event. So
it's such a big deal for Japan too, because from this Olympics, Japan was going to get a lot of tourism, which is not only good for their economy, it's good for local businesses.
Yeah.
It's good for the reputation of their country.
Exactly.
And just losing that is devastating.
It is. And previously they were going to limit the amount of spectators to I think 1,000 people, but now there are no spectators allowed. I mean, I think in a way, like, it's sad, but it's also necessarily.
Necessarily.
Necessarily. It's also necessary because only around 18% of the population is vaccinated. Like, that's not a lot.
I think a lot of that is to like the fact that they aren't rolling them out as
quickly.
Yeah, as quickly and as their demand is greater than their supply.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So it's a big issue, and because of that, they got 1,149 new infections in Tokyo, the most since January.
Oh.
So it's not getting better. And
They
they also declared a state of emergency in Japan, and it will last until August 22nd. So
yeah, and I think the Delta variant is really what's causing so much concern. Like, the Delta variant is causing 58% of cases in the U.S.
Yeah, and so you can imagine how in other countries it's insane.
Especially with such low vaccination rates.
Yeah, and the WHO actually stated that there will be more variants and there will be more danger.
Yeah,
more
transmissible, more dangerous.
and even ones that the vaccine might not be able to protect. So it really depends.
So, I mean, I think this was a smart, educated decision on their part. I mean, I think a lot of people will be disappointed, but it's for the best of the nation. It's for the best of the people.
More than anyone, it sucks for Japan because they spent like $1.5 billion on the stadium.
Oh, that's actually
they lost a lot of their
really sad.
reputation. They lost a lot of tourism. They lost a lot.
Yeah, I bet they did. Yeah,
they lost so much, but they're doing this for the health of their community.
Yeah, sometimes you have to make sacrifices, even if it's not necessarily what you want to do or what would make you the most money or but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. So that's kind of what's happening. But you can still watch the Olympics online. You can watch it on your TV or your computer or your phone, any streaming platform. So I'm looking forward to that. So
okay, so that wraps up our first half. In the second half, we'll be talking about Larry Nassar, Andrew Cuomo, the budget reconciliation deal, etc., etc.
Yeah, some
interesting
headlines. All right, so see you in the next half. Bye. Welcome back to the second half. I feel like that rhymed, even though it didn't.
Totally.
Okay, so let's dive into the ocean of news updates.
Alrighty.
Alright, so the first news update for the second half is Inspector General says FBI botched Larry Nassar investigation.
Yes, so for a little bit of background, Larry Nassar is one of the worst people on this earth.
Yeah. Okay.
He's awful.
Yeah, exactly. He's not an astronaut because oddly enough, I feel like his name sounds like he would be an astronaut. He's not an astronaut, just saying.
He's a terrible person.
Yes.
But basically, he was a convicted sex offender, which means that he abused and harassed many different girls who were not only underage, but just like, basically what happened, he was a doctor for the USA national team. And along with this, he would treat every top athlete in gymnastics. He assaulted many of the people he treated, including Gabby Douglas, Simone Biles, Allie Raisman, Michaela Maroney, some of which who are Olympic gold medalists. That is insane. Yeah. And even if they weren't gold medalists, that is so wrong.
No, it doesn't matter who it is, And so he was the coach for gymnastics for the US team. So
I think another thing to mention about that is that I feel like this case is so bad because he's in a point of like authority in a sense because he is like
he's the coach.
He's not a coach, but he's like the doctor,
Yeah, I mean
he's like the doctor, and so he gets so many girls to him, and he's abusing his position to get to those girls.
Yeah, and that's so wrong.
It's so manipulative. It's like
and it's like evil. Like I just like there were so many girls too. Like not just one. There were like oodles of
dozens.
Oodles. Yeah.
And he would do things such as like, assaulting them with his fingers, touching their genitalia, like all sorts of disgusting things.
Things that no human being should do to someone else if they don't have their consent.
Yes, definitely. And it's an awful thing, especially since he had so many like qualifications to be a doctor. I mean, he was like he was the doctor for that team. He was like
Yeah.
a physician. I think eventually he was like a professor almost.
It's almost like he was using his position just to like assault people.
He was.
Basically, yeah. Like he didn't have any interest in the actual job. He just assaulted people.
You have to have mental issues to do that.
Yeah.
He definitely has some like
You have to
he's
have,
probably psychotic
or like
sociopathic.
or like severe narcissism even.
Yeah.
Because that can make you feel like you can do whatever you want. You
Yeah,
know?
and that's what narcissism is. And
Yeah.
it's insane. So basically, earlier on, a couple years ago, he was charged with a bushel of crimes,
Really?
including
Yeah,
sexual
yeah.
assault, human trafficking,
Yeah,
running a
yeah.
criminal enterprise, even
For good reason.
For
Yeah.
good reason.
For good reason.
Actually, I watched the trial when it happened like a couple years
Oh,
ago.
really?
And in the trial, the girls spoke such moving speeches about their
Yeah.
experiences, and I think it's really great that
And
they got
it's
justice.
so amazing that they spoke out about this because that
Yeah.
takes a lot of bravery and strength. And I'm just really glad that they shared their stories so this doesn't have to happen again to them, or he doesn't have to do that like toward activity to any other girls. You
I
know?
think especially being in a sport, you fear that like he could get you in trouble or get you kicked off the team.
Yeah.
Because he
Yeah.
does have that authority, so it's hard to speak
Yeah,
up.
and in a lot of situations, I feel like people don't listen to the woman. Like, it's sad, but it happens.
Yes,
like,
definitely.
People are like, "Oh, you're lying. You're trying to get attention. Like, be quiet." No, like, no woman would make that up.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think just for anyone out there, if you're in this situation, speaking out will only help you.
Yeah, tell your friends and your family. Even if you're scared, they're gonna help you in so many ways, in every way that you can, like psychologically, because it can damage you psychologically.
And also,
mentally.
there's actually like several hotlines that you can reach that will just
Yeah.
like you can do it anonymously. You can tip them off without saying your name.
Yeah,
You could say things even if you are embarrassed of it, and you shouldn't be because
Don't be embarrassed at all. It is 100% not your fault.
It is
It is
not.
all their fault. Like 5 trillion% their fault. You know.
Yeah.
So just please, like, and people will be happy to hear your story. They'll think you're brave and strong, and like they'll be glad. So
Yeah. So anyway, like we were saying, he got charged with sexual assault, human trafficking, and running a criminal enterprise, and he got charged with a 60-year prison sentence.
oh, good.
That's really
Good.
good. And
Good.
we thought justice has been served, but however, inspectoral general claims after years of investigating that the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which is like the USA's like main headquarters,
Like they're detectives, kind of.
yeah,
Like,
they're in charge of all like the security.
investigator or like.
Yeah, they just investigate into so many different things, and
Right.
they're supposed to make sure that crime is at a low.
Mhm.
But they were this inspector general. He claimed that they actually. His name is Horowitz, by the way. That's his last name.
Okay.
But he claimed that the FBI has actually covered up several of his misconducts over the years.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And the U.S. Justice Department's internal watchdog said on Wednesday, and it accused 2 FBI officials of lying to cover up numerous and fundamental
So-
errors that allowed the abuse to continue.
So basically, they're making him look good, kind of, or like
yeah, they just
they're-
covered up like
or like
proof.
yeah, covering it up so it can still happen. Basically.
Yeah, so I think what basically this whole situation tells us is that they knew about this before, but they covered it up because he was in a point of authority and they didn't really want to punish him. Maybe he had friends on the inside. Who knows?
That's
I mean,
awful. That's awful. That's terrible.
I
Like,
think that is insane considering it's coming from the FBI.
I know, right? The FBI, which is should be at least so reliable, and we should be able to depend on them.
Definitely.
Like the fact that they're hiding stuff about like this terrible, awful human being, just because he's in a point of authority, just because he's like the physician of the U.S. gymnastics team, like it's wrong.
Yeah. So according to the Reuters article, they said, a quote, a scathing 119-page report by the Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz said the FBI's field office in Indianapolis, quote, failed to respond to the NASA allegations with the utmost seriousness and urgency that they deserved and required.
I mean, the case requires immediate action.
Definitely.
right now, like immediate investigation and action, and like putting him in jail as soon as it is humanly possible to do so. But that's not what happened.
Yeah.
So I bet a lot of people are mad, and I'm mad too.
Especially
Even
the
though
victims. I feel so. I am
I
so
know.
sorry you
I
had to
know.
go through that.
That's awful. Like, I bet they're so angry in their families, and they should be angry, you know?
Yes.
They definitely should be. But I'm glad they were able to get out of that situation, and I'm glad that he's in jail and he gets what he deserves. So, I mean, that's the only bright side of this, is that he's in jail, you know?
It should have been done sooner.
It should have been done so much. It should have never happened in the first place, you know?
Yeah.
Like, stuff like this should never happen.
Yeah,
And
it should never
anywhere in the
happen.
world.
Ever.
It doesn't matter where we are, who you are, what kind of authority you have. It should never happen. So
Yeah. Okay. So our
Alright.
next headline actually has something kind of similar.
kind of.
It's
yeah.
about Governor Andrew Cuomo, and he's to be questioned about his case of sexual
Yeah,
assault.
so he has a lot of sexual assault allegations about him saying he harassed female aides. Some of them, like, they range from like him saying inappropriate comments to like unwanted hugs. He's a 3-term Democrat for New York, and he's up for re-election next year.
Yes.
So he is expecting to be questioned by members of the New York State Attorney General's office.
Yeah.
So the investigation will result in a public report. So we don't know what's happening with it yet. We don't know the outcome yet, if he's gonna get charges pressed against him or like what's happening. But there will be a public report. So June Kim and Ann L. Clark are the lawyers hired to question him.
Yeah, so the assault allegations started in December with Lindsay Boylan, a former aide, and she talked about how she experienced the harassment through Twitter. The governor apologized several times and claimed that he never intended for it to be that way.
Yeah.
And he's sorry about it.
Yeah, he said he didn't want to make people feel uncomfortable. He didn't realize he was doing that. He has denied any wrongdoing and said he would, quote, fully cooperate with the investigation. So, like, we don't know where this is going to go, but again, I think there are a lot of females who just felt, like, really uncomfortable with some of his comments and actions. So,
Yeah.
I think it's good that they're speaking out about
Yeah,
that.
and I
Again,
think especially if he didn't mean that, I think he should have been more careful because
Yeah.
he's a governor. I mean, that's a big
Yeah.
deal. So.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So our next headline is along with something that we've talked about quite frequently. It's the the reconciliation.
Yeah. Yeah. So, they came up with an amount for the reconciliation bill, which is like the family plan. It's like the humanity bill, basically.
Yeah.
So the amount is $3.5 trillion. Whoa.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
and in case you want to hear more about this bill, if you don't know what it is, we talked about it in our previous news updates.
Right.
I think in the past 2 weeks, so on the ones from July 4th and July.
And I'll like briefly go over a couple things.
Yeah,
that
go
are-
ahead.
Yeah. So, they're pouring federal resources into healthcare, climate change, and family service programs. And this bill, this budget deal, will also include an expansion of the Medicare system, which is healthcare, for elderly citizens, and it will also cover dental healthcare, vision healthcare, and hearing healthcare. So this is like the first step in Biden's plan to recover our damaged economy, because coronavirus took such a big toll on it that like it's undergone so much negative change that this is like him working towards a better economy and like a better country, I guess. So the Democrats do face possible opposition and lack of support from their rival moderate and progressive factions, the Republicans.
Yeah.
But Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, he's like the leader for like the Democratic Party in the Senate. So he said, quote, "We are very proud of this plan. We know we have a long road to go. We're going to get this done for the sake of making average Americans' lives a whole lot better."
Yeah, and
So,
so,
yeah.
even though they don't have support from the Republicans, this is a part of Biden's vision for making like a bunch of like his promises he made during campaigning for our country, and
Yeah.
they really want to do this agreement, and so they think they can do this without support from the Republicans.
Yeah, because so a filibuster is basically where you need the majority party to you need the majority of people to agree. So in this case, it would be 60 people, but you don't need a filibuster for like the reconciliation.
Yeah. So basically, what it says is, for any legislation regarding like finances and taxing, you do not need like that 60 people voting. You only need a majority, and Democrats have 50 to 50. But with the Vice President Kamala Harris, they have 51, so they would win.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
exactly.
basically.
So, so that's basically what's happening. And then the next headline, Senate Democrats unveil bill to decriminalize marijuana. So in case you didn't know, marijuana is like a drug. It can cause like hallucinations, delusions, severe like anxiety and panic. It makes you high. So like you know how like alcohol makes you drunk, drugs make you high.
Yeah,
so,
and a lot of people like that feeling. They like how it makes them
and
feel.
I think a lot of adults can use it responsibly, but then some people don't.
I mean, personally, I would say definitely try to stay away from it because it's so addictive.
Stay away from it.
Yeah, but we'll talk about that in another episode.
So Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who I actually just talked about in the past headline, and a group of other Senate Democrats introduced a draft legislation that would decriminalize marijuana by taking it off of the federal list of controlled substances.
Yeah.
So
previously it was illegal, right?
Yeah, I think it was for on the federal level.
So like I actually know for like Colorado and California it was legalized a couple years ago. But now
this is at a federal level.
So like the entire nation.
So it is still a draft bill, so it hasn't been passed. Schumer said, quote, "Today is a big day in the Senate. For the first time, I, as Majority Leader, Senate Wyden as the Chairman of the Finance Committee and Senator Broker, one of the foremost champions for justice and equity here in the Senate, we are all joining together to release draft legislation to end the federal prohibition of cannabis. This is monumental because at long last we are taking steps in the Senate to right the wrongs of the failed war on drugs." So I actually listened to his speech, and he gave reasons why he think it should be legalized. So one of the main reasons was that a lot of like young kids or teens are caught with like small amounts of the drug, and because of that they have a criminal history, and it's harder to get a job or like credit or live your life if you have a criminal history. So I think his main thing was like so many kids are like penalized for this that they can't, like one mistake even when they're young like kind of ruins their future. And
I also heard, tell me if I'm wrong about this, but I also heard it disproportionately affects children of color. Like
definitely. Race was actually mentioned in this. I think it has affected like black people more. There are more like criminal histories or criminal charges for black people regarding marijuana. The Democratic senator said, quote, "Communities of color have paid such an awful price for the historical over-criminalization of marijuana that we want to make sure the money goes back to them." So I think it does, like, for young children in like black communities, I think it is it can ruin their lives.
And I think especially like we're at a place where it's sort of hard to educate the people that are raised in poverty about things like marijuana. So it definitely unfairly affects
I think
those.
if they're caught with them, then it's like they can't get a job in the future. Their life is kind of ruined. So that's what Chuck Schumer, like, he's really passionate about that. He said he made that one of his priorities. So I would say definitely stay away from marijuana because it can be really dangerous.
I think the reason this bill is looked at as a good thing is because those children a lot of children in poverty are African American. The majority are.
I think there were statistics about how more African American people are in poverty.
So and because of that, the kids in poverty don't have access to like materials, so they do things like drugs, or they sell drugs, or they do drugs because they don't understand the weight that it causes, and that's not their fault. So I think this is kind of like taking away that variable that they're getting punished for something that they're not educated about.
So I think that was kind of his main reasoning for this. So I mean, I think he has his reasoning, and I think it really changed my perspective on it when I actually listened to what he had to say and his reasoning. So
I think it's not really saying that you should do marijuana and that it's okay to do it. It's more like we shouldn't punish a group of people for simply being raised in this situation.
Where they're not even educated about the risks of it.
So they get penalized
for basically the rest of their life almost. So
along with like the Democratic news thing. Texas Democrats are actually fleeing the state to go to the Capitol.
Okay, so over 50 Texas Democrats fled the state and came to Washington in hopes to block one of the most restrictive voting bills in history. So, or in the country, not in history. Okay, I'm sorry. But so basically, this voting bill it would ban 24-hour polling locations and drive-through voting, which usually increase turnout among minorities, and it would also prohibit election officials from sending absentee ballot applications to people. So basically, it makes it harder for certain communities and like certain people to vote. So it like restricts voting.
And that as a whole, like not even in Texas, across the nation has been such a big issue with there's a big issue about like Republicans want to restrict voting rights.
Yeah, voting rights.
So that's been a big argument. So I think this is important.
So these Texas Democrats, they were mad. So they wanted it. The Republicans were pushing this bill. They wanted it. They said it would help people vote in confidence. So the Democrats, they fled. Okay, so a quorum is basically a certain amount of lawmakers you need to like conduct the process of passing a bill. So over 50 of the Texas Democrats left, which means that they don't have a quorum. So they don't have enough lawmakers to pass the bill. Okay. So by them leaving, they're like halting the progress of the bill being passed.
Oh. So their thing isn't isn't necessarily them trying to stop it. It's like protesting it by them not being there.
Yeah. And also another thing they're trying to accomplish, they want to get rid of filibuster because filibuster is one of the main reasons why their like federal legislation law like for like voting rights isn't being passed because a lot of Republicans don't agree on it.
Yeah. So they want it to just be majority, not like 2/3.
Not only do they want to get rid of filibuster, they also want something called For the People Act, which is like it's a bill. It wasn't passed, but basically it's like a bill for like voting rights at a federal level.
So the Free the People. So it's like basically it's a bill so that more people have access to.
Yeah, it would guarantee voting rights for more groups of people. Okay. So they're trying to influence lawmakers that will play like a big role in getting voting rights. So one of the people they talked to was Joe Manchin of West Virginia, who holds like a key vote in Congress for voting rights legislation. So he supports filibuster and he doesn't support For the People Act, which is like
he's Republican. He's not?
Yeah, no, I don't think he is.
Joe Manchin?
He's Democratic.
Oh, so that's unique because most Democrats do support like this. So that's interesting.
Yeah. So he's actually a Democrat, which is surprising to me because I started questioning myself. I'm like, wait, but no, yeah.
No, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's weird.
I know, right? Okay. He does support like voting rights, but they did talk to him, but like they couldn't really change his mind unless he really changes his mind. Like nothing can really be done about that. But actually, Biden gave a speech making it immensely clear that voting rights and protecting them are one of the most important civil rights issues of our time, and that Republicans are behind efforts to limit the right to vote, and we need to stop that. So I think another reason why they kind of went to the Capitol was so people realized what was happening in Texas, so it brought attention to their situation.
That's smart.
It is smart. So people knew what, like, the bill that was trying to be passed in Texas, so, like, people knew the restriction that would be caused if the bill was passed. Yeah. So, we'll see if this accomplishes anything. They're planning on going back on August 7th. So we'll see if this accomplishes anything. I certainly hope so, because I think the bill would definitely restrict a lot of people from voting.
Yeah. And I think the filibuster is something that's been so controversial for a very long time. A lot of people think that it should simply be majority and they should eliminate the filibuster. A lot of people think that it should be like the 60 votes to 40, which is the filibuster. Like you have to have 60 votes. So it's a big controversy, and we'll see what happens in the future.
And actually, the reason Joe Manchin, he's a Democrat, he does support, the filibuster, is because he doesn't want one party to have total power. So if there's like no filibuster, he feels that one party could have total power. So if the rules were reversed, then the Republicans would have like total power, he feels.
And
so,
also, like, in the future, in the next elections, like, let's say somehow Republicans get power. If they eliminated the filibuster, then Democrats would hate that. So
yeah, so he's a
really like
Democrat.
a
So I think that's why he supports the filibuster.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it really
So we'll
depends.
see what happens with this whole situation. We'll keep you updated. So, yeah.
All right. Is that our news update?
I think that is actually everything. Wow.
All right. That was super fun.
Yeah, it was.
If you guys have any questions, by the way, we didn't know this off the top of our heads. We're not that smart. We had to do a bunch of research.
So much. Like,
so much research.
And I had to, like, for the topic about, like, the people fleeing to the Capitol, I had to, like, look at 50 sites and, like, listen to podcasts because I'm like, what is this? This is so
Yeah,
confusing.
we're not born geniuses. We're not geniuses
Definitely not.
So if
Not
you want
even
to check out our sources that we use, they will be linked in the bio.
If you want to become more informed, the first step is doing research.
Yeah, and so we linked all the sources. If you want to check them out more, you can Google them. Check out our website, which will also be linked in the bio. It's weare-youth.org. And you can also follow us on our social medias, which will be added in our bio and description. And let us know. Our email is also there in case you want to email us about any questions you had. Follow us, let us know everything, and that's it.
Yeah, I think we were supposed to do news for the week for us, but I literally can't think of anything.
I can't think of any either. Here's my news for the week. School starting is next month.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. I hope you do well in school. I hope you have a fun rest of your summer. And that's that.
And a summer activity I would recommend is, I don't know.
Go swimming.
Yes. Go to a lake, a pond. No, pond? I don't even know.
Go swim in a lake.
A pool.
Do an adventure. Go out of your comfort zone, but not too much of it. Don't be pressured, but go out of your comfort zone.
Don't, like, get yourself killed. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, no.
You're kidding me.
No, I mean, I'm not kidding. Like, I'm kidding. I don't even know.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
Anyway.
I hope.
Bye.